Welcome, everybody. We are going to be covering chapters 19, 20, and 21 of What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And these were fantastic chapters. A bulk of each chapter is personal affirmations, so really great. I don't know if anybody else did this, but almost on all of them, I just read them out loud, and it's like, whew, really powerful. And I think he even says, like, try reading that to yourself in the mirror every day for 3 weeks and see what happens. So I know we talked about that last week too, and it's true. I really liked in chapter 19 how he talks about replacing the word problem with challenge, because problem is such a negative connotation in our mind, and a problem is something that might be too hard, and so you just don't even go for it, or it's but it's interesting how our brain doesn't see it that way, and it will figure out a problem the same way to figure out how to get to a goal or figure out how to overcome a challenge. So the self-talk is the same, which is really fascinating. So I didn't know, does anybody else have any thoughts about that? I liked how he said setting goals should be simple. Like often we think of success as this huge mountaintop, and therefore, if it's that high, I'll never get there. Instead of just a daily step-by-step doing the next right thing. And I think that's just just keeping it simple like that is so powerful, whether it's you're trying to lose 20 pounds or you're trying to rank up or you're trying to be kinder to your children. Like, it's just little things. It's lots and lots and lots of little things. It's not like, I'll never get to that, so.
Yeah, and in that same section, he's also connecting the misconception that a lot of us naturally go to of success equating wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly what you're talking about in relationship to like mountaintop, like goal achieving, but also just breaking down that like a lot of the things that we are successful in are not wealth. It's not an issue of wealth. And so, but because we're kind of like wired like that, we look at them as like not succeeding, like we're failing. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
And just the goals even of that we do set for ourselves unconsciously day after day, that just help us even survive things, things that we're doing, for our everyday living, right?
Yeah. And that they can be as important or as simple as we want them to be, which is so freeing, really. You don't need to say like, oh, that person has this goal, and then you automatically almost think of yourself as a failure if your goals aren't that huge, which is so silly. Like if your goal is to speak 10 kind things tomorrow, that could literally change the world. You don't even know, the ripple effect of that. And it's these small things. I think that we really need to break things down into small things all the time, and because they all will add up. And
and I love where he moves into, again, and this is a principle that he's reinforcing, like he's spoken specifically of it in chapters before, that our subconscious mind deals with, goals or the problem standing between us and our goals. It deals with it all in just a matter of fact way of accepting it. If you want to achieve your goals, give yourself the right direction, the right words, take advantage of your own mind's natural dedication to do for you what you tell it most. Like, I just think that is, again, it's just that rewiring and telling ourselves.
So how do you, I feel like the day-to-day goals are easier for me. Yep, I can do this list. I can write out this list. I can get it done. I can feel accomplished. But how does that fit in to goals that you should be setting that are, because I think that some goals that you have to make are bigger. And so is it like, maybe I should view it as like an outline. Like there's a giant goal, and then underneath it, put all those baby goals that are going to help me like stack on top of one another. And often I look too much into the big goal and set myself up for failure to begin with, because I'm like, there's no way. But because I think that you have to have both. And if I live too much in the day-to-day stacking, I love that idea. I love what he was talking about. And I love that, like, that is an accomplishment for that day. Like you said, if you're, it's not a bad goal to have dinner ready by a bad goal to have, 4 people, like make 4 appointments and all those kinds of things. But I sometimes tend to get stuck in those small goals and just cycle through small goals, not ever hitting the bigger goal, because I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll just make a smaller goal for myself. Does that make sense?
Well, that's so cool. So do you talk to yourself about what you just talked to us about? Because
I'm struggling step by step to apply these principles.
I agree. And I'm not saying I do what I'm going to say right now to you, but like, really, Lisa, you just presented an amazing life dynamic for you. And that's exactly what he's saying. You need to, first of all, come up with your script and really approach that, what you just said to us, and talk about it from every direction, and then speak, like, which is rewiring your subconscious, remember, which doesn't care. Your subconscious it's indifferent to whether or not you deal with what you just said or not. It's just going to work with what you download into it. So that's cool for you to spend some time writing out some specifics about, I do my little goals really well, and it leads me to accomplishing bigger goals. Like, I mean, that's just like one overarching kind of statement about it. But you're going to download that into your subconscious, and it will produce, the things that you're wondering about.
Well, he says, like, to solve any problem or reach any goal, great or small, the internal mental process we go through is the same. So knowing that you can do these little goals is really encouraging, because then you're like, it's the same thing.
It's true.
It's exactly the same thing. And I think maybe we trick ourselves into thinking that because it's big is not the same thing. It's so much harder, because in our head, we're thinking it almost as a problem, instead of like a goal or a challenge. And
but the thing is the little things that Lisa's doing naturally.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to talk herself into it, or she didn't have to not talk herself into it. She didn't have to download any wiring for those things to happen.
Right.
So that's the difference. Like, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
Lisa, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I really like the solving problems affirmations. When I was a lot more faithful in saying them, there was a few on here that I remember grabbing, because when I read them, I'm like, oh, that is so familiar to me. And I'm kind of upset at myself that I didn't continue doing that.
Yeah.
I literally memorized them. I'm reading it. I'm like, I know, like, I memorized this because I said it every day.
That is so
For
cool.
a long time I was doing this, probably, when did we read this book last? 3 years ago? I think it was my first year of doing Plexus. So
yeah, I wasn't around when you did this book. So I read through the scripts that he gives here, and I just highlighted some ones that jumped out at me, so I would encourage everybody to take time to have a space of 5 minutes or so where you can just actually read these things out loud and see what just really jumps out and grabs you.
Yeah.
I highlighted, I have learned to recognize that many problems carry with them benefits and potential opportunities that would not have presented themselves had the problems not occurred in the first place. That was good. But and he's always almost changing out challenge for problem.
And just being organized. I mean, a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm just not organized, and that's their excuse, instead of saying well, if you know that about yourself. I think sometimes we almost don't want to change something that's negative in our life because it's our one crutch or excuse to not do the hard thing. Like everybody knows your goal is whatever, fill in the blank, but you're like, but I'm just so disorganized all the time. And you just hold on to that almost like a disease, that it's become a part of your identity. And you're just like, I'm so disorganized. And so then you're just all of a sudden, if you would ever relinquish that or change that, then all of a sudden your excuses are gone for not being where you said you were going to be, And so I think that's so powerful, that when you start changing this wiring and really face it head on, because it's not going to serve you well. It's just not. I mean, you think about your life and how short it is, and we don't know how long we have. Wouldn't you want to make the most of that, right? And just you don't know what opportunities you're missing or what changes you're going to make in this world if you hold on to this negative talk. And I think I'm just blown away by the ripple effect that it can have on the world, not just in your own life, but on the world. So if you're more about others focused, that's your natural bent, then think that way too. Just be if you change yourself, you will change the world. I'm so convinced of that.
And honestly, it's like you said, negative self-talk, but some of the stuff, for instance, even we don't even see it as negative self-talk. We see it as, oh, we're being realistic.
Right.
This is just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like that. It's a deception, really, because that's actually not the way it is. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be like that. Mm-hmm. And so just understanding some of these scientific, what in this book, Self-Talk, has scientifically been shown now, it's fascinating to turn, and it starts at the very beginning when we started this book, that aha of this is really something for each of us to really take responsibility for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So if I'm saying, oh, I'm just not organized, I need to take responsibility for that. Mm-hmm. So then ultimately I'm saying, well, do I want to not be organized, or do I not want to be, not organized? And then it's a choice. I'm making the choice. I'm choosing that. So really the person, right, exactly what you're saying, the ripple out effect, because then I say, well, I'm going to own this. I'm going to be responsible, and I'm going to take out that old wiring, and now I'm going to put new wiring in, and I am an organized person. I wake up and I think through what I need to do. I plan my time well. You know what I mean? And you just start going through and choosing those things.
Yeah. Be detailed. Be very detailed. I like at the very end of chapter 20 or 19, he says, like, be very detailed in what you're telling your brain, because your expectations are about to happen. That's really exciting. That's super exciting. And moving on to chapter 20, the very first sentence, he says, people who are the most successful at whatever they do are those who are their own best motivators. They stand on their own feet, get themselves moving, and put themselves in charge of their own success. That alone could make somebody feel very intimidated, especially if, like, instantly your thought is, oh, that's not me, I can't do that. You know, boom, right there, that's something you need to change, right? Like, I know that, like, the reason I highlighted it is because it's like, I would love that to be true about myself, and it is sometimes, but it's not always. It goes back to when he talks about taking responsibility for yourself and your own actions, and not putting the blame on other people for your non-success, you know, or whatever. And yeah, you are your best coach. So then he goes, there's a whole bunch of really good, really, really good affirmations there.
Yeah, right after you shared those first thoughts from chapter 20, he continues on and he goes, you are not only programming yourself to meet the challenge, you are also giving yourself an extra insurance of the added belief that you can and will accomplish the tasks you are setting out to do.
Yeah. So good.
I love it. Like that extra insurance, like with this. And it's like, it's tried and true. Like, this is not just an out there kind of a hokey pokey thing or hocus pocus thing, should I say. Like, this is so rooted truthfully in the way God has designed us.
Yeah. I'm reading another book slowly, but kind of on the side, Switch On Your Brain. I don't know if you guys have heard of that book. It's really good, and it's from a biblical perspective, but it's kind of like science is catching up to scripture. So, you know, kind of, we've talked about this in this book too, how, renew your mind, and like your brain is actually renewable. Like, they didn't used to know that. It used to be like you had to figure out how to, work with what you have. Like, if you have trauma or whatever, instead of like, you can actually change. It's neuroplasticity, it's crazy. It's pliable. And so when you think about that and the Bible, how we're to renew our mind, and how, your faithfulness is new every morning. It's like literally in the morning, there's brand new, it's called neurogenesis, brand new little brain stem, like thingies that, I don't know, I think of them little buds in your brain, like little flowers. Like, they're just brand new every morning, guys. And so, like, when you think about that, that's incredible. And so, like, so nurture those, like as we are doing this, I believe those brand new ones are either going to be growing in life, or we're just going to keep squashing them, or they're going to be grown up with, like, just not healthy, So I just think that's really fascinating. Like, would you give a brand new baby a bottle of Coke? No, you give them milk, like, let's feed our brain that milk, that goodness. So.
Right. Wiring it with what is true. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, like, in the first section of the script of, we're in 20, right? Chapter 20. he starts off, I can do anything I believe I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah.
Down further, I'm not afraid of anything or anyone. I have strength, power, conviction, and confidence. I like challenges, and I meet them head on, face to face, today especially.
That was one of the ones I memorized. And I was like, ah! I felt like it was like something like back here, like woke up again. I was like, man, I'm going back to saying that every day. So good. So good. Yeah, and he just keeps going. There's a lot. And I really encourage you guys to take at least like 7. I would say take at least 7, like, and say them over and over and over. Really so good. If you cannot think of your own, copy these and change it a little bit. If you're like, oh, I just don't like that one word, change it. Make it fit for you.
He goes into this section here and still in chapter 20, he's like, this is under page 160, giving life to your self-talk. Shout them out to yourself if you have to, but grab them, hold on to them, and make them your own. If you're going to shock your subconscious with the new words, you might as well give it a full dose.
Yeah.
I love that. And then he goes on at the end of that paragraph. He's like, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Stand up, face them, point to the door. Oh, that's it. Because like, instead of ever letting the demotivators in your life weaken you and bring you to your knees, even for a moment, kick them out. And he like just goes through this hysterical, like, stand up, face them, those demotivators, point to the door, tell them to get out of your life. You're through with them. You don't need them any longer. Stop them in their tracks. And he says, overpower them. And I added in my book, in Jesus' name. Because there is the reality, as we have trusted in Christ in the spiritual realm and the unseen, there are forces that are at work absolutely feeding in these demotivators. Okay. And so in Jesus' name, honestly, when we literally are telling these demotivators, these negative, these, however you want to talk it, oppressive things, tell it to get out. So that.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like he even says almost at the end of that chapter, instead of spending a few minutes engaged in the highly productive activity of motivating ourselves to take action, we engage ourselves in talking ourselves out of action and into having another cup of coffee. Been there, done that. It's so true. Yeah. It's really important to realize that you cannot sit around waiting for yourself to feel ready, to feel motivated, to whatever, feel courageous even. Just tell yourself you are these things and then start the action. It's crazy, crazy, crazy how it works. Like it really does. It really does. And even if it doesn't, you still felt sick inside the whole time and whatever, your outward perception, like people looking in, like they're not going to even see that though. Like there is something about the air you give off if you are telling yourself that's what you're doing.
It's true.
Crazy.
And can we just touch on this next chapter? I know it's getting close to 9.
Yeah.
But situational self-talk, he says that's the easiest form of all these different kinds of self-talks, because it's like right then and there when you're in that moment, in that situation right then. So like he describes a situation of going to work, and instead of, be that person that says, who typically may be dragging and dreading going to work and not feel like it, but choose in that now moment, I'm going to enjoy going to work today. He tells a story about that woman with cooking, that she needed to cook for her family and she did not like cooking. And she chose to just like, every time she entered the kitchen to cook, she would say, I'm going to enjoy cooking. So
Yeah.
just, but that it works and it's real. And then how about the traffic analogy? Did anybody read this one with the traffic?
I think I need to put that in my car. I seriously need to put that in my car.
I am not kidding. I think that all cars should actually be made with this little self-talk dialogue with traffic.
Oh my word. I have to read this, you guys. It says, traffic lights change at their own discretion, not mine. If the light changes before I get there, I will stop, wait for the light to change, and relax while I'm waiting. I like literally burst out laughing because if you ask any of my children.
Oh my word. And how about his friend that was like the super chill guy, super like just composed and well controlled, but except when he was driving on the LA freeway and somebody would merge in front of him. And like just the way he talked about like the explicits that came out of his mouth. And he goes, until the next poor soul like would merge over.
I mean, yeah, it's bad. And then, but he talks about too, like one moment of that, like allowing yourself that stress can actually have toxic effect over your body for hours. So you're like, and then he's like, so why would you do that? I'm like, that is a very good question.
See, that is so funny because yes, he gets into the chemicals of stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few minutes of anger, anxiety, negative stress, or frustration can literally add to our physical systems chemical toxins that last for hours. Yeah, not cool. Like we talk about not eating sugar. Well, we should just like stay chill out on the road. Yeah. Oh, and then I really like this, and then we'll close up in a minute. How we react to those things in life which we can do nothing about, will always be the truest test of our own self-control, our own individual sense of self, and our ability to manage our minds and ourselves in a way that keep us coming out on top and at peace with where we are. Really good, page 172. There's so much around us that we cannot control. We cannot focus on those things. No. Sorry, dog, hold on. Stop it. Sorry.
No.
He's like digging in my purse here. No. Crazy dog. Anyway, well, if there's no other, there was a lot in these chapters, a lot to ponder and swallow. But yeah, really good. I encourage you to finish up those chapters. And I think next week is our last, I'm pretty sure. I think I counted right. Did anybody else happen to count how many chapters? I have to like scroll on my Kindle and I can't figure out how to like, because it doesn't have a table of contents and I don't know why.
Yeah,
there's
so did we ended, yeah, there's 3 more.
Okay, cool. That's
did you say 4?
No, there's 3.
3, okay.
22 through 24.
Yay, awesome. So yeah, next week will be our last, and which is perfect because then we'll be in November, December months, and we'll take another poll if anybody wants to do another like really short one. I have a couple ideas in mind, but you know, don't want to overload either. So
no way. Like, are you thinking right away and possibly doing another one, or wait till January?
Definitely January, but I was thinking of maybe something, but like there was a couple short books that would do like 2 or 3 weeks, you know, book study or something. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on here, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.